Hey, how is everybody doing today? Welcome back to the PD Race YouTube channel, where today we're going to be taking a look at Rockingham and the A-Class Cup cars. I think this is a pretty fun track. I really do enjoy racing here. It's honestly probably one of my favorite tracks. The cars tend to be relatively loose on corner entry and sometimes on corner exit. The backstretch can get a little bit hairy too if you get the car uh, unsettled coming out of turn two. They can even get loose on the front stretch, but if you overdrive them too much, they'll get tight. So this is a pretty nice setup for this week where you do actually have to drive the car quite a bit. It's not just a point and click style track. So let's take a look at the track map now. So here's the track. As you can see, it's a pretty weird shaped oval. It's almost as if somebody asked this man to draw an oval, and this is what we got. The track does have quite a bit of banking, which is one thing that makes it a pretty fast track. Even with the banking, it's going to be more difficult to enter into turn one because the car is going to want to get loose on you. And exit of turn two, you can expect the car to get kind of loose. Now, as you're coming down the back stretch, if you get the car a little out of shape coming out of turn two, then when you try to catch it, there's a pretty good chance that the car is going to snap back on you. So when you counter steer to try to catch the car from getting loose coming out of the corner, you might think you've caught it, and then it'll snap so that it's now spinning up the track. So that's something to really watch out for. Best thing to do in that scenario is just breathe out of the throttle instead of trying to, hulk the car to where you want it to go. Then entering turn three is a fun corner because you're going to actually turn in a little bit sooner than you think you should. And you're going to get the car not really unsettled, but you're going to want to feel the back of the car get a little bit light when you throw the car in. And then you'll point to the very beginning of the corner, and the banking's going to catch you, and it's basically going to slingshot you around out of the corner. Coming out of three and transitioning into four, you don't want to get back onto the throttle too early, because you might run wide and hit the wall. Because the exit of four, the lower half of the corner still has some banking, but the upper part of the corner, the track kind of drops away from you. So if you get up there too soon, you're going to end up understeering into the wall, or even over a long run, you're going to end up wearing your tires out quite a bit because you're going to be adding so much more steering to try to keep the car down low. And I've actually had a surprising amount of decent green flag runs, so saving your tires at least a little bit or not overdriving the car does end up being a pretty important factor. So, without any further wait, let's take a look at the lap. And as usual, I'll be quiet during the lap, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. And I think you guys are going to like it. I got some new tricks this time for going through the lap. So coming through here to set a 22.268 is going to be a quick enough lap time to put you in the upper to mid field in a top split race. So let's take a look here at the lap. You might think it's best to really drive it into turn one because it's really inviting, but it's not. It's better to let the car coast. So right here, just past the second rock sign, you're going to let off the gas, and you're going to let the car roll into the corner a little bit with some medium brake pressure. Point the car down into here. Now, ideally, you want the back of the car to be a little bit lighter right here because the banking's going to catch you. So let that do the final bit of your slowing down. Let the car ride up, and then turn it down into this section for the later apex of turn two. If you don't want to be too early on it because it is the later apex corner. Now the car might get loose coming out of two. Then here, what you want to look for is this right where the corner starts almost. And that's where you want to aim the car. You want to have it a little bit loose, really light on the brakes, and the banking once again is going to catch you. And then you don't want to throttle up too early. Like we said, then you run the risk of hitting the wall as you come out of there. So that should set you up for a pretty decent lap. But we do have a couple more things to discuss. Tire wear is a pretty major factor for this week. The Rock is notoriously brutal on tires. So even after a short number of laps, they're going to be hot and they're not going to be gripping up quite as well. So one of the ways that I've found that you kind of manage this is although the corners are really inviting for you to drive it in super deep, because for the first few laps, the car's going to take it. The tires are going to be able to stick, and you're going to think you've got this thing figured out and you're going to roll up through the field. However, in about maybe 5 or 10 laps, the car characteristic is going to change pretty drastically, and you're going to start getting a lot of understeer because those front tires are just going to be so tired and hot from really chucking it into the corner. So to mitigate that, one of the things you can do is, like we were doing earlier in our qualifying lap, is you can kind of roll into the corners and let the banking do your final bit of slowing down once you've got the rear of the car a little bit light. That's really the key around here. As for brake bias and steering ratio, I've left them all at default this week. I'm actually not able to manage the car as well if I shift the brake bias at all towards the rear. So default is at 65% towards the front, and I tried shifting it to back maybe half a degree or 1 degree, and I just was struggling to manage the car. So I've done okay leaving it on default, and same for the steering ratio. I tried to increase it, so default is 12-1. I tried to increase it with just one click, and it is a lot more difficult for me to save the car and to get it to turn in when I want to. Now, part of that's because I'm not really used to using a slower steering ratio, but I also think this is a pretty fast track in general, so you're going to want a quicker steering box, just so you can keep up with what the car is doing and what's going on around you as well. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and take a look now and see what happens if you take some less than optimal lines through the corners, so that if you do happen to do that in race, you know what's going on and you can try to figure out how to fix it. So this is our first example. It's real common to brake too late into turn one. That gets the rear of the car pretty unsettled, and you spend the rest of the corner chasing it around, trying to make sure you keep the car under you and you don't wreck. Our next example demonstrates what happens if you get a little bit too aggressive with the throttle coming out of turn two. As we said, the car can get loose, and if it does, this is what happens. And your best bet's to breathe out of the throttle, otherwise it's going to snake down this back stretch because of the banking in the back. It's going to kind of throw the car back around on you. This example looks at what to do if you have a car down low in turn one. You can take a higher entry, still get the car to swing around, but be way more patient on throttle before you finally commit, and expect it to get loose coming out on top there. You can arc that corner a little bit more and make that second turn a little bit later of an apex, so that might be something to try. And then our final example, this is what it kind of looks like if you have a car on your outside. So you're going to want to keep the car real low. It's going to hurt your entry. They're probably going to get a run on you on the outside, and they might get by you. That's okay. Just tuck back in behind them and see if they're being aggressive. They might wear their tires out, and you'll get that position right back without having to fight too hard wearing your car out for it. So you do want to keep in mind for some of these moves, if there is a car on your inside or outside, this is a tough track to go side by side into the corners. So it's better to give a little bit more room than you think, especially because this track is so bumpy that sometimes the car could just kind of bump loose or hit a bump and then get tight. So it's fun to race door to door real close, but on this track it's pretty difficult to not make contact with other people, and you can unsettle the cars pretty easy. So keep that in mind. You don't want to go being too aggressive and costing yourself your race or the people that you're racing around. Want to try to be respectful of everybody that we're racing with. And just one final note before we go is that if you do have a car low in turn 2 and you're on the high side, you can arc turn 2 a little bit more like we talked about and get your car pointed straighter before you come out of the corner. However, the car on the inside might not know that that's what you're planning on doing because it is a much different line than we do at most other ovals. So just keep that in mind if they're a driver that seems like they're struggling to keep the car low or maybe their awareness isn't the best. It might not be a good idea to go for that move and be patient and try to go for a move on the inside in turn 1 on the next lap in that braking zone. Maybe they'll get loose. So some of this track really comes down to just patience. So do keep that in mind. With that said, that's everything I've got for today. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in for another video. It still means a lot that you're here and that you're watching. I hope you're enjoying these. I'm enjoying learning more on how to edit and make these better. So I hope you all enjoy your race week. I hope you picked up some more tricks for the track. If you did, let me know down in the comments. Let me know how your race week is going. So that's it. Have a good day, everybody. Take care, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a great day.